Hi, welcome back to another episode.
Hey, Shishi.
This is Courtney
and Christina.
and we are so glad to be back. As promised, we are here with part 2 of our Let's Talk Finances series, and we definitely want to empower women to take control of their lives, get on that path to financial freedom. But before we get started, I just want to remind you to hit subscribe, hit that like button, and share. You can also find us on Spotify, Pandora, Google Play, Podbean, you name it, we're on it.
We are on it. I feel so much energy for this episode. And so I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guest for today. This is my personal financial advisor, Kyara Smith, and I'm going to let her have a moment to just introduce herself, talk to us a little bit about how you arrived at the place of being in finances. And also, I want to shout you out for reaching out to your fellow Black women to ensure that we are doing what we need to be doing to prepare ourselves for future success. And so there you go. Welcome to the show, Kyara.
Welcome.
Yes, thank you guys. Thank you. First, I just want to say thank you to both Courtney and Christina for just giving me this opportunity. So as I mentioned, my name is Kyara Smith. I am born and raised out of Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, but was a 2018 graduate of Langston University that is in Langston, Oklahoma. We are the only HBCU this far west. So I'm a proud historical Black college graduate. And during my time there, I studied accounting. Really thought that was going to be my career path, was becoming a certified public accountant working in corporate America. But very quickly, I learned that that was not going to be the path for me. So I have a strong passion of working with numbers. Also have a really strong passion of just working with people, understanding like what are their goals, what do they want to accomplish, and basically how can we connect the two. So very quickly, starting working in oil and gas accounting here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and just kind of felt like that was not going to be the path for me. So as you can probably imagine, as an accountant, you are very much at a desk every day, just head down doing your work, and you don't really get the opportunity to interact with other people. So that really drove me to go back to school to get my master's degree from Kansas State University.
Yes, cheers to that.
So I just finished that degree earlier this year in financial planning, financial therapy. And I'm really excited about that because it continues to put me on track to become a certified financial planner, which is the premier designation for financial professionals in the industry.
Yes,
girl. You gotta drop all the cred and the credentials, honey.
Yes, girl.
But all in all, my heart is just in service, being able to, like I said before, just connect with other people and understand how can I help them get from point A to point B. So that's really all that I do on a daily basis, and just excited to share. I have a strong passion of working with Black women, people in the African-American community, entrepreneurs, educators, you name it. If you have a goal, let me know and let's do business and figure out how to help you get there.
Yes. Oh, I'm so excited for this. Okay.
So we have a strong initiative, as you said, to help Black women, all women, really get on the path to financial freedom and also having that financial literacy. So just working in the field that you do, what is something that you see that people lack or don't understand, or it's just common mistakes that they make in their finances?
I think number one, the biggest thing, it kind of boils down to just fear. So I work with busy professionals every single day, and just kind of keeping in mind that I once was on the other side of this as well. And I think that the biggest thing is that, on a day-to-day basis, most of us are focused on pursuing the things that are going to help us get to the next step, right? So whether it be pursuing a professional goal or just kind of thinking about what's going on in our personal lives and how we can continue to work towards that. And so one thing that I notice is that when it comes to finances, people are just oftentimes really avoidant. They don't want to kind of sit down and kind of look at like what is truly going on in their financial world. And so in all honesty, like sometimes it is hard, just to kind of think about when you do sit down and make that time to look at your finances, it's overwhelming to think about where do I even start. So hopefully I hope to just kind of give you guys a couple of tips today just to kind of take a deep breath and just kind of think about some simple steps that you can start working on just to kind of get the ball moving.
Yes, and I think that is the hardest part. When my homegirl referred me to you and you reached out, I immediately had this tension around like finances. But I think that the beautiful thing was you made it so clear, and I think a lot of times there's terms people don't understand. But you spoke to me, you broke it down in ways that like I could understand. And I know that that will be helpful for our viewers today. So let's go ahead and start out with like maybe the first tip that you have for our viewers.
Yeah, definitely. So I definitely think it's important to just kind of address like, why do we even do this, right? So I tell people all the time to think about money as more of a tool or a resource instead of it just kind of being like super transactional. So essentially, like, we have money to help us to get from point A to point B and to basically help us maintain the lifestyle that we have today. So really the first step is just kind of thinking about where do you want to go. So considering where you are today and thinking about like how can you kind of start taking steps towards being able to accomplish. And so the first thing that I always start with is just let's write down what your goals are. So if you're like me, I can only think about what I'm going to focus on over the next maybe like 6 months to a year. I am not the person that can think further out. So I always just kind of focus on my short-term goals. So thinking about when I'm sitting here a year from now, just reflecting on what I was able to accomplish over the past year, just writing down, okay, I want to buy a car. I want to pay down some debt. I want to get ready to, position myself to buy a house. Just sitting down and just doing those types of things. So a couple of ways that I really enjoy doing that is by either like doing a vision board or just kind of sitting down and just thinking about like what would be the ideal or perfect day when I'm sitting here like a year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now. So.
Love that. Yes. So many times goal setting can be very overwhelming because we'll set long-term goals, but then there aren't those intermittent, like short-term goals that help us to stay on track and are in alignment with that long-term goal. So that is such a huge point of clarification.
One thing that I like to really note about the financial literacy piece, I think we kind of oftentimes we hear so much emphasis on like how there's a strong lack of financial literacy, but truly like the biggest thing is that most people are only going to retain information that they're going to act on over the next like 2 to 3 years. So that's why we really just try to focus on like those 1 to 3 year goals, maybe 5 years out, depending on like what the goal is. And that doesn't necessarily diminish like your longer term goals. Like obviously thinking about when you want to retire, what that's going to look like, that's something that you definitely need to kind of think about today in terms of making sure that you can successfully plan accordingly for retirement. But in terms of like just what like you want to accomplish from a short-term realm, like just try to kind of keep it concise to what you can basically handle in that short-term like time frame.
So some examples of that, would it be like paying off a credit cards or paying down other small debts, or is that more so with budgeting and saving, or is it kind of encompass both?
A lot of times what I see is that for most people that I sit down
with, my goals right now, by the way,
they're pretty much a little bit of all over the place. So most people kind of have something that they're working on right now. Like I work with a lot of young professionals or just early career professionals. So they're basically like, very early on in their career, they're a couple of years into their career. So they're probably thinking about paying down some debt, which is very important to be able to, if you have the goal to buy a house, that's going to be really important. If you have a goal to start a business, that's going to be really important. So just kind of getting your finances under control. So that, like I said, kind of starts with debt, thinking about buying a house, maybe buying a car, just kind of getting yourself in a better position so that way you can be aggressive with some of the bigger goals that you have.
Okay, that makes sense.
I love that.
So what's your next tip for us?
So tip number 2, let's see.
I love how prepared she came on this show,
like I said, I know I still have some type of accounting features. Like I am very much detailed.
Next slide.
So, okay, yeah, we kind of touched on the longer term goals piece. That's definitely important, like I said, to kind of make sure that you have a time frame of when you want to do that so you can set a proper savings strategy for that. And always just kind of keep in mind that your goals are not like necessarily concrete. Like as you kind of like think about different goals, like you'll have different ones that you want to layer in over time. So that's why it's important just to kind of frequently come back to what you have set in place and figure out like, is this still important to me? Do I still want to pursue this? And then think about what other ones you want to add in.
Yes.
So once you are able to do that, next step is basically thinking about managing your budget and your cash flow. I think this is probably
So
one of the things
convicted
that
just now.
it's very hard for people to very just keep up with, and just like I said, being avoidant of thinking about like what's actually going on with their finances. So I hate to just go ahead and break it to you, but in order for you to successfully accomplish your goals, you must know what is coming in and what is going out. Okay.
Can we stamp that though, Kyara? Because and I want to know, like, name my privilege of like I have good money coming in, but to like be a good steward of that, you got to be able to like grab a hold of it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I love that word, stewardship. It's so important.
Not swipity swipe.
Okay. Yeah. I'm not gonna stand in the shame. I already went through the shame spiral. Okay, so go ahead, girl. Tell us.
One thing that I what I've learned, like just being in this business, is they tell this all the time. Just acknowledge it, because once you're able to acknowledge it, you know what it is, and you can move on. Versus like, a lot of times people, especially as women, we kind of like just carry a lot of like guilt or like shame around, like, just us not doing what we think we're supposed to be doing. So, you avoiding it is not going to change what it actually is. So just acknowledge it and move on. So in terms of just doing a budget, so regardless of whether you use a spreadsheet, an app on your phone, that's my personal way, because using an app is how I can kind of manage the guilt that I feel. Or using a note on your phone, or even if you just like using the old-fashioned way of just pen and paper. It is important.
I don't mean to cut you off.
Yeah,
but that's such an important point. Managing the guilt that you feel, like that's such a huge point, because I think oftentimes we see people who do certain things, like doctors. Oh, they would never eat Burger King at like 1 a.m. I feel so bad, right? Like they told me to watch my blood pressure. I shouldn't be doing this. A doctor would never do this, right? But like different things, right? People that are in like, I guess I don't like the word prestige because it means deceit, but like who are in reputable professions, we oftentimes get this like stigma about that they would never do this, or they would never, right? I'll just be very transparent. Last week I was in Walmart and like stopped walking, and you were like, you deserve to take a vacation, to splurge on yourself, to like, so don't stand in that guilt. But to even now hear you say that you struggle with that as somebody who is in finances and is a guru in this field that I'm afraid of, that I know many people are like hesitant to engage in, is so powerful. So to all of our shishis, please hear her. She just said for herself, and she does this every day, and y'all heard her credentials, right? Nobody is like above anybody. We're all here learning in this together. Okay, I'm done.
Acknowledge it, correct it, move forward. That's all.
Yeah.
Especially like me and my husband love to go out for brunch. Like I am definitely the one that is like, we have a full stock of alcohol at home, but I still want to that's me. But I mean, definitely, like I guess I still have that same guilt. Like I still have to, bring myself to sit down and look at my budget once a month at the very least, just to make sure that I'm being responsible. Because I think a lot of times, like we find ourselves like, praying or asking for like a financial increase, but truly, like if you cannot be a good financial steward of what you have right now, you're not going to be able to manage that increase that you're asking for.
With what you can handle.
The biggest thing is just knowing
for a little.
knowing what's going out. So like I said, if you use a pen and paper, if you use an app, a spreadsheet, whatever works for you, just make sure that you're tracking like what is actually going out. How much is the mortgage or the rent? How much are the utilities? How much, does it cost to, put gas in my car? How much do I want to budget for, eating out this week? And there's nothing wrong with you setting money aside to do that. Like that is basically your lifestyle expense. So what is it that you enjoy doing and making sure that you add that a part of your budget? So to the point that I made with Christina, you know, there's no need for you to necessarily feel guilty about spending money on yourself. You dish out so much money paying for just things that you have to take care of. And as a professional, if you know that you work hard, you should definitely find time to spend money on yourself, whether that be going to go get your nails done, going to go get your hair done, go get a massage. Like self-care is super important. You're going to spend so much money taking care of other things over the years. So be sure that you're actually investing that into yourself. And that also is going to help you to, feel a whole lot better about when you actually do go to work. Like you probably aren't going to feel as resentful because you're just like, I'm not dishing all this out, paying for other things for other people, but you actually see some of that come back as a personal investment return on yourself. So I think that is really, really important. I think another thing that I often see people don't do, especially in the African American community, is that everybody is spending their money out of one pot. Okay. That is like one of the biggest mistakes that you can make. Do not do business where you play. Okay. So it's very important that when you receive your paycheck to divvy it up. So I use this cash flow model. There's a couple of different ways that you can do this. And this is not something that I created, guys. This is something that has been around. So on average, most people are spending about 50% of their monthly income taking care of fixed expenses. So you should basically have a separate account that you designate all of your fixed expenses to come out of. Okay. So if we have a paycheck that's coming in of $1,000, we're going to set aside 500 of that into our bills, household expenses, and just paying off our minimum debt payments. Okay. So the next piece, and this is a standard rule, you want to be saving about 20% of your income, whether that be for personal goals, emergency savings, and towards retirement. You need to be setting aside about 20% of your income towards that. So that's another essentially savings account. To kind of touch on the emergency fund piece a little bit, emergency funds are very, very, very important. I think a lot of people may or may not know that they need to have that, but the true purpose of an emergency fund is to help you to overcome a financial challenge or an opportunity without it having to interrupt your daily cash flow. So an emergency should not have to basically leave you guessing if you're going to be able to pay the light bill or not. Okay, so that's what those funds are for. If someone approaches you and offers you the opportunity to invest into their business, that's also what you can use your emergency fund for. So all of that, rule of thumb, you should basically have anywhere between 3 to 6 months worth of expenses set aside in an emergency fund. So of your monthly expenses, 3 to 6 months over there in an account that you do not touch on a regular basis. So
yes, ladies, that is so important. Like, I think a lot of Americans, which is crazy, live check to check. And that is just so dangerous to do. Like, it just takes one moment, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I mean, you're out on the street or you can't feed your family. So really, really keep what she said in mind. Keep you a little something stowed away, just in case, especially now with this pandemic. You see how everything's shut down in an instant.
Yeah.
And people lost their job. No one saw that coming, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's so important. You just never know what can happen.
Yeah. And I think too, because I was telling Kyara when we had our consultation last weekend, like, I'm so afraid to even like release that money. I was talking to somebody and they said like, sorry, they said like they keep, I think she might have said I keep $2,000. And I was like, what? Like I keep much more money in my emergency fund than that, because I think I'm a person that will like either go to the way like worst of the spectrum or the like best of the spectrum. We're working on getting me to the center.
No, I feel you. I mean, you work for somebody else
Like,
at the end of the day.
I'm ready.
Yeah.
Like, I'm ready to go. You know what I mean? So I think too, that's a piece of it, is like, how much are we talking in an emergency fund? Because for me, it might be a way different number than like the person I was talking to a couple weeks ago, who only has two. Not only, it's a blessing to be able to have $2,000 in an emergency fund, but for somebody who worries, who I'm not married, I don't have a partner, I'm like, it's me. So I put more stock into an emergency fund than like somebody who is in a different position. So how do you kind of like mitigate that and decide?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I tell people that I truly think that 6 months is a little excessive when you do not have a lot of financial responsibility. So what I mean by that is, if you're renting your living space right now, you're not worried about if the water heater breaks, if the AC conditioner unit goes out, how you're going to fix that. Now, if you have $2,000 in your emergency fund and you're a homeowner and your water heater goes out, that's your emergency fund. Like, that's gone. So definitely, like, if you're in if you basically have, like, you own a home, if you have like a spouse, if you have children, you definitely need to kind of work towards that 6 month target. If you kind of work in an industry where it's kind of like you could be gone at any point in time, you probably need to have closer to 9 months to a year worth of expenses set aside. Just because you don't want to kind of get to the point to where you go to work one day and they tell you that you're not coming back tomorrow, or you decide that you're not
Services are no longer needed.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you,
that's
for
why.
here.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you're kind of at a point in your life where you're kind of in a renting space, then definitely just kind of thinking about what are your risks. So for someone that rents, you probably need to make sure that your car is in good working condition. I mean, if you're kind of having issues with your car, thinking about, if you had to basically either replace this car or get it repaired, possibly how much is that going to cost you? Some unforeseeables, but that's something you still might want to kind of just be prepared about. Is just like if something happens to you medically, like if you need to go to the ER. So I'd say if you're just kind of starting out, and I think that this comes from a tip from Dave Ramsey, and I think that this is excellent, especially even for people that are college students, is work to at least have $1,000 in an emergency fund. Like, if you just need a place to start, just start working towards saving $1,000, and you'll feel really good when you get there. But don't stop. Okay, now that you've kind of got that habit, keep going, and you'll appreciate yourself later on down the line. That you basically have that emergency fund, because then when you kind of think about some of your other goals, you can be a little bit more aggressive in terms of saving towards those, instead of just, like I said, if you don't have that a lot of responsibility, you can be a little bit more aggressive towards your other goals instead of just continuing stashing money there. One other point that I want to mention about the emergency fund is this should be in a type of account that you easily have access to. So it should not be in an investment account. Okay, this should not be in a stock, in a bond. That is not something that you easily have access to. So use like a checking, a savings account, even a high yield savings account would make sense in this case. But don't tie it up in something that's going to make it hard for you to have access to.
Yeah, agreed. Because if you need to get to it, you got it.
You can't be like, sorry, you have to wait 5 to 7 business days.
5 to 7 business and this fee on top of it.
Yeah, or you could take a loss on the investment, and then
so that's super important. Yeah. So I think thinking about that, I think about myself, like I have too much access to that emergency fund. Like I almost wonder, like, is there another like safeguard to put in place? Like maybe Courtney has access to that emergency fund, and like I want to go withdraw money, and I don't know, maybe they ping her and she's like, no.
Well, you know what I do is I have an account at a whole nother bank. So I can access it, but I'm not thinking about it because I don't regularly use it.
You don't see it.
Right. And I have a bank card, but it never leaves like my safe. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's my personal little safeguard.
I have that. So my emergency fund is actually with an online bank. like I said, I told you guys I'm here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, but my emergency fund savings is with the bank out of Chicago. And so I have like a debit card to it. I keep it at home. I just kind of have it stored away with like all my other just, like important information and stuff like that. But I basically kind of just have my paycheck automatically set up to where a portion of my check just automatically gets sent there each time. So I don't even see it touch my personal account. And then if I needed it, it's probably like a day, anywhere between like 24 to 48 hours before I can actually have that money deposited into my account. But it very much is probably looking at doing it like out of sight, out of mind. You could also like you kind of mentioned, Christina, like setting it up like with an accountability partner. So like your partner would basically get pinged if you were trying to pull money from
Put
that
my
account.
face on your debit card now.
Yeah.
Every time you go to swipe it at Target.
Yeah.
I know, Target.
Yes.
Oh God, Target.
You can really even do it like that, or just like kind of set yourself up to where you kind of have like a boundary in your mind of like when you're thinking about like, should I do this or not? You call your accountability
What
partner.
would Courtney do?
Mm.
Not with the slave hymnal though.
Every
That's
time she comes with a bag. Make you feel guilty.
Like, I need to return this, ma'am. I'm so sorry.
That is hilarious. I'm gonna think about that next time.
She don't hear me.
Wait, can you do it one more time for us? I can't stand her.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, let's keep it rolling because I feel like we're only at 26 minutes and you have dropped so many gems for us. So what do you have next? What's up?
Let's see. So we were talking about just managing the cash flow. So if we have $1,000 paycheck, we're going to put $500, 50% into our bill account. We're going to do another 20% towards our savings, and then the remaining 30%. This is what's called your spending allowance or your additional debt payment. So if you're being a little bit more aggressive towards your goals, you might kind of take some of your spending allowance and put it towards your debt. But really 30%. So of a paycheck that's $1,000, that's $300 that you have to spend. So most people are kind of on a bi-weekly pay schedule. So that means that you have to stretch $300 for 2 weeks. Okay. If you have a very in-depth budget to the point to where you have like detailed everything down to the gas, to you buying your coffee and your bagel every single morning, basically that $300 is like your spend money, like your blow money, like you can go do whatever that you want with it. So in this case, Courtney and Christina, like if Courtney called Christina and was just like, hey, I got the day off from work, you want to go get a massage and go get our nails done today? Christina could be like, yeah, let's do it because I got the money available. And like, there's no, doesn't be
There's no guilt.
wonder because you know that you've taken care of your business. You've paid your bills. You've saved the money that you need. So that way you know that, okay, you just have to make this $300 stretch until the next time that you get paid.
Yeah.
So that's my point as to just making sure that you manage your cash flow. Do not do business where you are going to play. Just make sure that you are splitting that money up. And that is a template. You can basically adjust those percentages to whatever you think works best for you. But the biggest thing is that you just make sure that you do it, set a budget, manage your cash flow, and make sure that you set a recurring reminder. So I tell people to, if you're one of those people that use like an Outlook calendar or something like that, just set a time each month. Like for me in my household, it's every third Sunday of the month we sit down and look at our budget, looking at our cash flow. So just set a recurring reminder for you to basically sit down and do that at least once a month. Some couple of tips on some apps that I had is mint.com. They are basically owned by Intuit or TurboTax. So that's a really good way to manage your budget. That's basically like a one-stop shop to kind of see all of your finances in one place. There's another one called Every Dollar. This one's by Dave Ramsey. This one does have a monthly service fee, but I've used that one before. And also another one, this one also does charge a fee, but they have not only like a really great way to just manage your budget, But they also do have like a lot of informational like videos that could just basically help you understand different financial concepts a little bit better. And
Is
then
that's separate from Dave Ramsey?
yeah, it's separate from Dave Ramsey. This one is called YNAB, or You Need a Budget. That's
Okay.
what YNAB stands for.
Okay.
That one's really helpful too. You can go watch the videos for free, but if you want to use their budget tool, I think it's like $84 for the year, so it's not terrible.
That's not bad.
Yeah, and then
Ooh,
lastly,
I think that's another important thing. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So the last one, I have not used this one before, but a lot of my colleagues have, like from like different peers that I've met in some of my financial planning classes. It's one called like the M stands for money envelopes. So instead of envelopes, it's envelopes.
Envelope. Okay.
Yeah, very interesting. So, but I've heard very good things about all these different apps. Personally, I use the mint.com one.
Mint.com. Okay.
And I'll have all of this in the description box below for you guys.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah, I forgot what I was going to say. But I do think that having some tool to help you, like sitting down. I remember hearing my mom is in banking. Really, I have no reason to not.
She sure is.
I have no reason.
She sure does. Now that I think of it.
I don't have a reason, but I think that I just have never like really, I don't know what it is. There's anxiety around money unless you got money in this country. And I'm just going to be real, like honest, unless you are somebody who comes from money, right? And you don't ever have to worry about money. What I've experienced going from like making $30,000 a year to where I am now as a first year teacher to where I am now, I remember what it felt like to like struggle and not necessarily like have that money readily available to me. And so when I had more money available, kind of like feeling like I could open up and be free, like, yes, I don't have to worry anymore. But really, when I'm looking long term, that freedom I'm taking now isn't going to help me when I'm talking retirement, when I'm talking living off of whatever.
You don't want to just rely on your Social Security.
Yeah, because that's disappearing. And so
please don't do that.
Yeah. Go ahead and talk to us about that a little bit.
About the Social Security piece?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So for those that may not know,
let them know.
Social Security was not always like the purpose is not to basically like give Americans like all the funds they need to retire on. So like right now in the workforce, like most of the baby boomers are like going into their retirement phase. And so they did not plan to be dishing out as much money as they are right now. So with our generation as the millennials, like now kind of taking over the workforce, like we're going to be the next like biggest generation that's going to go through retirement. Mm-hmm. So even for the baby boomers right now, they're running out of money. So between like now and I want to say it was like 2035, like that fund that they have available for Social Security is going to basically be non-existent. So over the next couple of years, they're going to basically have to rewrite the Social Security plan. Now, I tell clients that it's fair for you to assume since you put money in, you should expect something back out, but don't expect every single thing back. So like in terms of like how I do planning right now, we kind of just take on the assumption that if you have more than 20 years to go before you're actually going to retire, then we kind of look at for every dollar that you put in, you're probably only going to get about 50 cents back. Now, that's not the most accurate assumption. It's just a more conservative one that we do in terms of planning, just because we don't want our clients to solely rely on Social Security. So there are different funding opportunities that you can use towards retirement. And I think one thing that I often hear a lot of times from people in the African American community about retirement is that, I'm never going to retire. I'm going to work forever. That's cool. You can do that. I mean, there's people that love their job that, if you love it, that, people that say you don't work a day in your life, but think about retirement more as an opportunity for freedom. So, if you have the opportunity to not work, what age do you want that to be? How much money do you need to live on in order to do that? So that's kind of more of the
You want to
the
do it,
frame
you
of
can
mind.
enjoy it.
Girl.
Not when you're, I mean, not trying to be cruel, but like, oh, can't move and enjoy it.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
no.
Right.
Yeah. So just think about what age you want to be in. So just to think about some realistic ages, if you kind of work in education, if you're like a veteran, it's kind of fair for you to kind of plan to retire around age 50. But most people, the average retirement age is between 65 to 67. That's just solely because of when you can pull on Social Security. So that doesn't necessarily have to be the point in time which that you retire, but I would definitely, like, for most people, say that you should probably be thinking about anywhere between 55 to 65, like, as a reasonable retirement age. And then just thinking about where you want to live. So if you live in the Midwestern part of the country, this is, like I said, we just talking about middle class people, okay? If you live in the Midwestern part of the country, you're going to probably need anywhere between $3,000 to $5,000 a month to retire. If you live on either the East Coast or the West Coast, you're probably going to need anywhere between $5,000 to $7,000 a month. You also need to think about healthcare costs. You need to think about what inflation is going to look like. You need to think about what type of legacy that you want to leave. So those are all some different things to just kind of keep in mind in terms of retirement planning.
Girl, God, she's so knowledgeable.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I want to cry right now. I'm going to try and bring her not to.
I'm crying with you. Don't do that.
Because you don't, like, I think, right, like many of us, you know, my parents didn't go to college. So for me to have made it to where I am is huge. And so we both grew up with very like comfortable lifestyles. And so to have seen my parents make that for me without a college education, like I think what I'm struggling with right now is that guilt of like, damn, they made it happen and they didn't have all the education that I have. And here I am with all this education and like, I just don't ever want to squander, you know what I mean? And I think there's been a little bit of me that's been like, yay, like I'm making X, Y, and Z. Like, let's live it up. You know what I mean? YOLO. And like, I just think we have a responsibility, you know, and not to only do right by ourselves, but do right by those who came before us. And so for me, that would be my parents. And this is just so helpful for me because I think I've been running from, and I don't really have a reason to run from. Like, I've never known what it was like to like scrape. I won't say that. There's been a few instances where I've had to like scrape nickels and pennies together, you know what I mean, to make something happen. But to be in a place where I don't have to do that and not be a good steward of that is important to me at this point in my life. Mm-hmm. And so I just feel like you being here right now, sharing everything you've shared with us is just so invaluable. And I really hope she's that y'all are listening to this, because I think the myth out there is that, oh, I'm only 25. Oh, I'm only 28, right? Because I can say this because these are the things I was telling myself. I got time. I don't need to invest right now. I don't need to be saving for a house right now. Like, I don't even want that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But like, just talk to us about the power behind like getting in front of this thing earlier.
It is life-changing. I think most people, and you kind of see like in terms of the statistics, like just thinking about retirement, like most people don't even start planning to start saving for retirement until like age 25. But the power of compound interest is life-changing. So when you start early, that money grows over time. So the earlier that you start, the more freedom that you create for yourself later on down the line in the future. So if you're the type of person that you're like, I want to retire at 55, you need to start early. Like, don't wait till age 25 to start saving, because that only leaves you a 20-30 year time frame to save for retirement. And then you're thinking about, also think about the fact that the sooner you retire, the longer that you have to make sure that you have money to live on.
Without
so
working.
Right now the average life expectancy is around early to mid 80s. So if you retire at 55, and you think that you're going to live until like 85, that's like 30 years that you have to make sure that you can continue to live comfortably. So kind of make sure that you're keeping that in mind as well. I think I kind of lost the question. Can you repeat it?
No, I was just saying, like, being a good steward and you answered it perfectly.
Yeah.
Like,
Don't
get
wait
on
till the
it
last
sooner.
minute.
Yeah. Like,
Oh, I think I know what I was going to say. I also think that it is important to acknowledge like the people that have come before you. And so part of where I was getting at with terms of like, not feeling guilty about, truly what is happening. Like if you feel like you have, great income, like you have, a good handle, like you kind of can comfortably live below your means, there's really no need for you to feel guilty because someone did work hard for you to have that opportunity. And so, Christina, like I'm saying this to you, but I hope that other viewers are going to kind of make a connection with this as well. Is that I come from a single parent household as well, and so I know that like every single day, my mom constantly told me to make sure that when I went to go get a degree, I'm a first generation college student. When I went to go get a degree, to make sure that it was going to be doing something that I enjoy doing, not only to basically, not work a day in my life, but to basically also like fulfill her dream. So her dream was for me to basically have a better lifestyle than what she had and what she could provide to me. So that way I can in return turn around and provide a better lifestyle for her grandchildren. And so I think that it's a building effect. And so I think that instead of I think sometimes as like African Americans, like we kind of like glorify the struggle too much. And it's like, okay, in some respects, like you don't need to struggle, like, because someone else has worked hard for you to have this opportunity, this better lifestyle. So basically, like make sure that not only are you being a good steward of that opportunity, but find different ways to bring someone else with you.
yes.
Not often looks like the next generation. So
Yeah. I love that. I love that.
I like that, bring somebody else with you. And I think that's our whole purpose of doing this finance series with you guys, and things that we can't necessarily answer or explain or don't have the knowledge on, we'll bring somebody that does. And so we truly appreciate you for coming on and just sharing the knowledge, you know what I mean? So if you watch this video and you took something from it, share it, a lot of times people know nothing about their finances. They don't know where to get started. I mean, and that's okay. Acknowledge it. We've all been there. You know what I mean? So, I mean, we just need to help each other, be good stewards of each other.
Yeah. Absolutely. So the next point I had was to develop a strategy. So once you have basically like sat down, looked at the income, looked at the expenses, tally those numbers up, tally up how much you're bringing in each month, tally up how much is going out the door. And if there is money left over, that is what's called your surplus. Now, if there is not any money left over, go back and look to see, are there some areas of in your budget that you can basically cut costs, or, can I do without this for a month or two? Just kind of find some wiggle room into your monthly expense budget. And so from there, you want to kind of think about what is a doable, so what's a comfortable number that you can reasonably do, and meaningful number that you can set aside each month towards your goals. And so let's say, for an example, the goal was to purchase a house. So that's kind of one of those goals that I hear almost every single client touch on, whether they're like looking at buying their first home, their second home, or their forever home. They're looking at buying a house. So if you want to go to, let's say, purchase a $200,000 home, and you need to kind of be prepared for about 30% of the value of the home is what you're going to need in order to be able to get in. So 20% of that is looking at covering like the down payment and the closing costs. And then the other 10%, no, excuse me. So the 20% goes towards the down payment. The other 10% goes towards the closing costs. So if you only have like about $300 left in your budget left over, I'm not saying allocate every single penny towards your goals, because you want to leave a little wiggle room in there for like the unexpected, so that kind of rolls back to the emergency fund piece. But if you're at the phase of building on your emergency fund, don't just like use all your discretionary money that's left over towards like funding your goals, because you want to, like I said, have a little wiggle room in there. So maybe you can comfortably do about $200 each month towards your goals. So just kind of thinking about, excuse me, like what can you reasonably do each month? And then just thinking about like what's coming in, like what other opportunities do you have to raise your income? Like, can you go ask your employer for a raise? Um, don't get it twisted. Even with COVID going on, there are still companies that are hiring. There are still companies that are, giving their employees raises. So just think about like what is your unique value add as to like why you deserve that raise. Think about your tax refund money. For some people that are still getting stimulus checks, how can you basically purpose that money to be able to help you towards your goals? So that's just another step there, just thinking about like a strategy. So if your goal is to buy a house, you want to think about like what can you reasonably set aside each month towards that goal, and do that same step for whatever goals that you are working towards. And so that's something that you want to with your strategy, you want to basically focus in on what you're going to be focused on over the next 6 months to a year.
Okay. Got it.
All right. Well, that was excellent. Excellent.
Oh my gosh.
Where can our viewers find you if they have questions or if they actually want to utilize your services?
Yes,
because you
girl.
are amazing.
Promote yourself.
Yes. So
Promote yourself.
I am super proud to be a part of an amazing company called Northwestern Mutual. And we essentially provide needs-based, comprehensive financial planning to our clients. And what that simply means is that we take a look at all the different aspects of your life that have an impact on your finances and help our clients to see how do all of these things work together for the greater good. So essentially, we start off with just taking a questionnaire. So just kind of going through the very steps that I'm sharing with you guys today, just getting a better feel for where you're at, where do you want to go, and how can we help you to get there. This is a complimentary process, so we don't charge anything to essentially do that. So you can basically get in contact with me via my email address at Kyara, Kyara.Smith, SMITH @nm.com, or you can also go to my website at kyarasmith.nm.com, and you can send a note to connect with me there. I would plug my Facebook. Don't follow me on Facebook right now. I just got hacked. So
That's all right.
yes, but definitely go to the websites. One other point that I think is very important just to kind of mention, in terms of like just figuring out where to start, it is very critical for you to make sure that your assets and your income is protected. I think that a lot of people are super avoidant about talking about insurance, but it is critical. It is one of those key elements that makes sure that you can be financially successful. So if you have questions about being able to protect your assets, protecting your income, just know that, the reason why we do it is because your income is the driving force behind being able to accomplish your goals. And so if you protect your house, if you protect your car, a lot of people got warranties on their cell phones. Why would you protect every single thing else? But like protecting all those items, but you don't want to protect your income. So
that is so good. That is such a clear way. Even you saying that now, I've learned a different way of thinking about it than when I talked to you for we were on the phone for an hour and a half last weekend going over my stuff. But to hear you say why would you protect a cell phone? Why would you protect a car?
And not your money.
And not your money, your worth.
It's really you. It's you that you're protecting.
You. Yeah, that's so good. Yeah. So I think that just so many gems. Okay.
Obviously, you'll probably need a professional to kind of help you with that. So just know your options. When it comes to identifying what's the best insurance for you, you definitely want to look at does this company have your best interest in mind? Okay. Yeah. Number two, can they basically provide for you what you actually need? Okay. And just kind of thinking about is this something that you're going to be locked into today, or can you basically grow with that coverage? So with people being avoidant about insurance, they want to wait until they need it to get the coverage. That is not what you want to do. So insurance for protecting yourself, it is going to be much cheaper the younger you are, because that means you're healthy. So don't wait until you need the coverage, because you're going to be fighting against your age and your health at that point. and the cost of that coverage is probably not going to be what you want to what you want to spend money on for that. So I'm definitely looking into that.
Oh,
Perfect. Well, thank you so much again. One more time, drop your email for us.
It is Kyara, Kyara.Smith, SMITH @nm.com.
Oh, girl, I love you so much. And I just want to emphasize this point, and then I'll be done talking about relationship. Because I actually, when I was living in Tulsa, this guy I knew tried to like take me through this process, but I didn't have the relationship with him. And so like any of you who are watching who Kyara has reached out to you because of her connection with me, I'm vouching for her. What you know about me, like those of you who grew up with me, Courtney and I are no different than like the girls you knew in Fairbanks. Right? So I would not be on our platform bringing Kyara on if I did not myself go through the process with her. I am actively going through the process with her. So 100% verified. And she was referred to me by a person that I trust. So that means something to me. I hope that means something to you all. I think in this field, when we're talking about finances, there's that anxiety around like, can I trust this person? And I trust her, and I'll just leave it there.
Don't worry about being judged and being ashamed and all of that. Just here to help.
Yeah. Yep. I share my challenges with clients, and like I told y'all, like, he talking about going to the gym. I want a margarita. So
yes.
Thank you, ladies, once again for having me here. It has been a great pleasure, and definitely just wanted to help other people in any way that I possibly can.
Yes.
Thank you. Bye.